G'day everyone, welcome to round 23 of the National Rugby League. It's the NRL Market Watch podcast. It's proudly brought to you by TopSport. Remember, they are the home of the TopSport betting multi, topsport.com.au. Make sure you download the app today. There are so many exciting games, important games in this round, the third last of the 2022 season. Can you believe that? Hasn't that happened quickly? Tristan Merlehan, of course, fresh off a victory for the TopSport Titans on the weekend. Woohoo! Very excited about that. And of course, Gerard Condon, who's hot off a victory himself, took the Roosters at -3.5 and did the second half, I think, with his feet on a chair and his Cuban cigar puffing away as he watched that one from the SCG. How are we, gentlemen?
Very, very good, Jimmy. I'm up and about today, and I walked into the Top Sport Lounge there on Sunday Arvo, and we've got a very good relationship with a couple of the guys there that look after our account, and they came rushing up. They said, "Now, what was the consensus on the Market Watch pod? Are we a chance? Are we a chance this week?" And I said, "All the boys, they're against me again, but I feel very confident. I'm 1 for 307 this year, and I think today's going to be the day where I get to 2." So that was a good win, and finally broke the shackles a little bit, and it was very, very excited home crowd. So it was great to see.
Well, not only did Tristan nail the lunch bet, which has been cock-a-hoop about for a couple of days, I think Jimmy, we've got messages on Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, and now Wednesday morning, because Tristan wanted to do the podcast earlier and put an extra 15 minutes in to talk about how good the Titans were. And, well, I mean, how good they were. What a score they rattled up there. They were loose with the ball. The attack was flowing. I mean, where some of that had been in the prior 11 weeks, we don't know. But, gee, anyway, it was great for them to get such a positive breakthrough win and give their coach and some of their supporters a little bit of a cock-a-hoop into the coming weeks.
Yeah, it's so
pretty obvious. Dino's a problem, isn't it?
Sorry, Tristan. Yeah, so exciting for them, moving up to 15th on the ladder from 16th. So putting some sort of...
There you go, Jimmy, tipping that big bucket of cold water straight over the top of it.
Well, we've solved the problem, though, boys. It's been pretty obvious the whole time that Tino's the problem. He obviously hasn't been putting the effort in, and
yeah, yes, exactly. Join the dots on that one, Big Tino. Hey, if you are enjoying the podcast, make sure you subscribe. You can do that, Wooshka, Apple Podcast. You can watch us on YouTube as well, as if you'd want to do that. But anyway, yes, well done, Gerard, with the Roosters. Congratulations to you, Tristan. We better get to the lunch bet score and then get a charity bank balance update. Gerard on the +3. What was your net score over the weekend? You were -1, right, Gerard?
I was 1 up and 2 down, Jimmy, and you were 1 up and 2 down, and Tristan was 1 up and 1 down. But Tristan would have taken that as a breakthrough. He's at least moved a little bit more positive on the win board. And the great thing, Jimmy, is between the three of us, we've all now tipped over $2,000 of our own hard cash into that pool.
Yeah. Okay. So +3, Gerard, +1, myself, Tristan. Much like the Titans, rocketing up to -11. So there you go. What's the overall balance now on that one, Tristan?
Well, the overall balance, it was after we popped our fines, it was sitting there at $11,029 today, which was really good. And then I got a very, very nice message from one of our most loyal, regular customers. It's been with us for over 10 years, and he's an absolute champion of a bloke. And as we know, our lunch we're putting on next month, it's sold out. And Vince suggested to me that he would have loved to have come to the lunch, but he wouldn't be able to make it. But he wanted to contribute to the day and to the cause, and he popped in $1,000 into the account to top it up. So he's an absolute legend, Vince, and I just want to thank you from all of us. It goes to a very worthy cause, and you've done really well there, mate.
Well done, Vince the Prince. So thank you to that. $12,029 is the overall score at the moment, and that's right, that is sold out. So we are looking forward to it. Dick's Hotel at Balmain, Friday the 9th of September. James Graham, the very special guest speaker, and of course we'll have some NRL auction items. We can go on and on about that. No point now, we've sold it out. That's basically a waste of time, isn't it? So
and Jimmy, just on that, isn't that fantastic support, and a big thank you to everybody who listens to the podcast or has followed our socials for us to sell our first ever event out in 4 weeks, a full house. It'll be a fantastic afternoon. We've got a number of very special guests that we haven't announced who will be there on the day, who are very well known in league circles, and we'll have lots of video content, photo content, and I'm sure one hell of a ripper afternoon. And again, a nice message from Chris and Olga during the week of how thankful they are for everyone's support.
Yeah, totally. Former Australian Test cricketer Brad Haddon has blown away the moths from his wallet too, and been able to fork out, buy himself a ticket. So I know I'm as surprised as anyone. So yeah, looking forward to that on the 9th of September. All right, lads, why don't we get into it? Round 23 of the National Rugby League starts with an absolute cracker of a match. That's on Thursday. And of course, Latrell Mitchell has been named. We have to wait and see. The presumption is that he plays. It may have even been factored into the market already. Tristan, you'll be able to tell us that. Campbell Graham is back also. Jackson Pollock drops out to the wing, and Isaac Thompson is out into the reserves. Lachlan Ilias is back, but Tom Burgess is not. So Daniel Saluka Fafita back into the starting side. Hame Sele to the bench. And for the Panthers, Dylan Edwards, a big out last week, named this week. Charlie Staines to the bench. Robert Jennings to 18th man. Liam Martin has been cleared to play. That didn't look likely when he came from the field last week. And Sunia Turava keeps his spot on the wing. Taylor May still out with that injury. Interesting, the prices on this one and what may or may not happen pending Latrell Mitchell being named in the side an hour before kickoff, Tristan.
Yeah, I think this game is going to jump around significantly. So to try to work out exactly where this market's sitting now based on will Latrell or will he not play, we opened the market at 4.5 when we were as certain as you could be that someone's going to line up. So that's where we opened the market. The market is now at 164 the Rabbitohs, $2.30 Penrith, and 3.5, 185 the minus, 195 the plus. So to me, what that would indicate is that we have him as more likely to play than not. But I feel that if he does play, the market will get back to 4.5. I feel there'll be pressure towards the Rabbitohs, depending on a couple of the players in doubt for the Panthers as well. And it'll probably get into around about that $1.50 to $1.55 mark, South Sydney. If he doesn't play, it'll be a massive move towards Penrith and probably get close to pick him, I would suggest. So I think he is the most influential player in the league at the moment. And I think this is going to have a big bearing on where this game ends up.
Yes, I think you're right. I've probably erred on the side that he doesn't play. I don't know anything. I'm just guessing that given how important he's been over recent weeks and the quality of form that he is and how important he is to the weeks ahead, that if there's a slight twinge there, then they might want to just take safety first this week and give him a little bit of a rest. On the basis of that, then, yeah, I still am quite strong on the Rabbits here. I just think that they get Penrith at the right time, and some of those outs to Penrith over recent weeks which have been mounting. And I thought last week against the Storm, it became very obvious how important Dylan Edwards is, Fisher Harris is. Clearly those two halves. They lost Martin at some stage in the game. All of a sudden, it just brought them right back 3 or 4 rungs. The Storm were very good in winning that game. The Panthers defense, which has always been their strength around their structure and even bringing in the lower grades, was still very good. But they go to Homebush, where Souths have an outstanding record, won 9 of their last 10 here. And in their last 13 games against the Panthers at any venue, even though they may have a losing record against them head-to-head, they actually have covered the line 8 of the last 13 times. So suggesting to me that, that in the past, the market has probably underestimated where the Rabbits might be. I think at Homebush, with a little bit of strike, Graham's a very key in. They get Burgess back off the bench. Jim Murray was outstanding last week, wasn't he? I'm with the Rabbits. I think that they can continue this little winning run, and they need to keep climbing the table and try and get as high a spot as they can.
So you saying you don't think Latrell's going to play, but you're still with the Rabbitohs, Jared?
Yes.
Wow. So I'm with you, Tristan. I think he is clearly the most influential player in the league at the moment. He's the impact that he has on the team, the impact that he has on the individuals within that team. Like he was untouchable against Parramatta at different stages. So just through pure athleticism, anticipation, and and what he was able to create for everyone else. We had him at $2.13 as my best bet for the weekend to score a try. He sets him up for everyone else, Alex Johnson included. He was a gimme at $1.68, I think he was, Tristan, but and of course got two. But I think they come way back to the field in his absence. And I know Cameron Murray, you mentioned how well he's been playing, and Cody Walker, I thought, had an excellent game last week as well. But it all starts and finishes for me at Latrell, and I rightly or wrongly. So for me, this is a really wait and see game based on his inclusion or not. Have a look at Dylan Edwards, who I would not describe as anywhere near as influential on the Panthers, and his absence last Thursday against the Melbourne Storm. That was an outstanding performance. I think Bellamy described it as one of the best performances in the last couple of years for Melbourne, certainly defensively. Munster was phenomenal, both sides of the ball too, saving tries and creating them. But I thought the Panthers, that good form that we saw from Sean O'Sullivan and Jamin Salmon, and no surprise with Salmon, given the week that he had to endure, they just lost their way. They highlighted how influential and how important Nathan Cleary and Jerome Luai is, because they just couldn't quite get it done when it mattered, no matter what sort of firepower you got around them. Api Coruscant was the best player on the field for Penrith by the length of the street. So I thought their performance was disappointing. So they need a response from those two younger guys. They have that capability to do it. Certainly O'Sullivan, I would anticipate that. And for me, it all hangs around Latrell Mitchell. You reckon? So that is factored in that price, you reckon, Tristan?
I reckon it's factored in that he's probably more likely to play than he's not. I would suggest that if he doesn't play, it goes pick him. If he plays, it gets to 4.5. That's my guess. I probably err on the similar to Jared, where I think he's still in a lot of doubt, because he is such an important cog to this wheel. But these games are so important to win. When are you going to get another opportunity to be able to put a statement win to Penrith like they could on Thursday night, when they've got players out and say, hey, we're here to win this comp? If they can put up an impressive win, and I think they need Latrell to do that, then this is going to put them in a great spot. I thought the thing, I take everything on board that you said, Jimmy, with Penrith's performance. They were disappointing, but in their two recent losses against Melbourne and against Parramatta, the thing I've been most impressed with is when they've been looking like they were going to get blown out at halftime, where Parramatta had a big lead on them at halftime, Melbourne had a big lead on them at halftime. They won or they tied the second half in circumstances where I think that's what wins these sides of comps. We know they're going to be better. We know when they get to the finals, they're going to have these guns back, but their defence and that attitude is so important, and it's going to take them a long way.
The key question for mine, though, Jimmy, that I wrote down all over this game is, where do Penrith's points come from? Edwards may well play, but last week they came up with 0. The week before, Canberra were just absolutely not interested. And, at least 3 of those tries that Penrith scored were so soft. So, with missing Fisher Harris through the middle, missing those two halves, and that breakdown of some of those combinations, kick out, he needs to be very strong on that left edge to give them the punch. There's a question mark about Liam Martin. I'm just not convinced where their points come to be somewhere around 18 to 20 points in this game to be winning.
The points come around Coruscant, don't they? He's the creator in the absence of those other guys.
How did that work last week?
Well, he was still their best player, but they were poor elsewhere. If Bellamy says it's the best defensive performance he's seen in a couple of years, then we've got to take it. Yeah. Plus 3.5. If Latrell's out, I love the plus 3.5, the Panthers.
Well, if Latrell's out, you're not going to be getting 3.5.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. If you're a believer of Latrell's out, take the plus 3.5 now.
Yeah, very good point.
All right, let's get to the first game on a Friday. So we've got the Cowboys up against the Warriors. Kyle Felt back after missing the last couple of games. Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow back to the bench. Jermaine Tanoa-Brown to 18th man. Jordan McLean into the starting side. Cohen Hess back to the bench for the Warriors. Same 17 that played against the Bulldogs, and fair enough on that. Chanel Harris-Tavita, he's been listed as the 18th man. This is a tough one on the road for the Warriors, Tristan.
Yeah, well, we saw what happened to the Warriors when they were on the road there against South a fortnight ago. They were obviously much improved in New Zealand, and I would expect that to be a similar trend throughout the season. The Cowboys, they need to bounce back. They obviously had a really tough week off the field in the lead up to the Roosters game, and then the Roosters were dominant against them. We've seen so far this year that the Cowboys can put quick tries on against these lower ranked sides, and that's why this market's up there at 19.5. It's $1.09 the Cowboys, $7.50 the Warriors, 19.5. Already pressure on the minus, gone from 18.5 out to 19.5, 185 in the minus. Now the thing I've noticed a lot in these games where there's a team out of contention is the total points. This is the highest total of the season so far, up to 52.5, 185 the overs, 195 the unders. It opened at 47.5. I expect this to keep climbing as we get close to the start of the match. It could get up to 54, something like that.
And if we're looking at total points here on the high side of 52.5, so 54 or possibly more, I mean, it's a very strong lead about where the market thinks this line ends up and what the margin might be between the two of them. And I'm certainly much higher. I backed this earlier in the week when it was under 18. It's now 9.5. When the key about the Warriors is they were very good last week. I just thought the Bulldogs were horrible, but their best form of their last 5 or 6 weeks has been those games at home. The record when they travel is very, very poor, especially distant travel. They've lost their last 10 in Australia. Let's throw in a couple of those where, 2 weeks ago they travelled to play the Rabbits and got walloped at 48-10. They're leaking 34 points a week when they're away. I mean, that's just an enormous concede. The Cowboys clearly off that tough week, as we've mentioned. I'm sure getting back home last Sunday and having a bit of a week to get together and focus on this game and what they need to do. It's a strong lineup. We know when they play these teams in the bottom half of the table, their record is outstanding, in particular the quality of their attack. I think they go whack here. I think they win. I think they win pretty comfortably.
I think the quality of their defence, too, is something that's come back into their game. 32 points last week against the Roosters, but before that it was 8, 14, and then it was 8. So, that's where I think they hold the advantage, and that's why I have a concern around total match points. They could win 40 points to 8 here, the Cowboys, and absolutely give them a flogging, and you're still running short. But was that Sean Johnson running the football at the line last week? I was, wow, I haven't seen that for a couple of years. But anyway, the Warriors, I thought it was really interesting, and it makes it even more important is that travel component. I know there was extenuating circumstances in the game against the Roosters, but what do the Cowboys have to do first week of the finals? Are they at home or are they travelling? And that's to be determined just yet. And I thought that was a really interesting one, the way that they came down to Sydney and didn't play well. That they have done that previously. That's a bad habit that the Cowboys can fall into it. I like them at the minus 19.5 as it is now too, because I have absolutely zero faith in the Warriors being able to score any points whatsoever. All right, let's get into this second game on a Friday. This is a beauty. The Broncos back to the winner's circle last week, as were the Melbourne Storm, in very, very emphatic form. No changes for the Broncos. Kobe Hetherington named to start. He had a bit of a head knock, so keep our eye on that one. Ryan James coming from the bench. Jerome Hughes back into the side for the Melbourne Storm, so that's big. Felice Kafusi still out following the sad passing of his father. Young Tonamapia into the centres. Marion Seve dropping out due to the hamstring injury. That was some sort of performance last week from the Melbourne Storm, Tristan, and I note that they've tightened up considerably in that futures market for the premiership as well.
Oh, that was an enormous win for a whole variety of reasons. That's certainly hasn't guaranteed them a top 4 spot because there's a lot of teams nipping at their heels, but it put them from being slight underdogs to firm favourites to finish in that top 4 now. And to do it in the manner they did with their defensive effort was very, very impressive. They have firmed up in the premiership, the top 4, and this game notably. They've gone from -4.5 to -6, $1.55 into $1.48. The Broncos out to $2.65, 44.5. Now the Bronx are in need of a big statement win at home as well. Like they're still there on the cusp of the 4. If they could cause an upset here, then it really throws a cat amongst the pigeons. And I think if they're going to make a song and make some noise in the finals, then this is a game they need to win at home because the Storm, they're getting players back, but they're still not at full strength. The Storm will be better in a month's time. And if Brisbane are going to get them, this is the opportunity to do it at home. I think it's going to be a beauty, and I think we'll know a lot about where both of these two teams sit, after this match.
Yes, Hughes is just such an important in here because all of a sudden it changes the dimension around he pairing up with Munster, what it then does to their back. Nofaluma and Coates now 2 weeks in, clearly getting better. And then with Smith coming off the bench, it balances up what they're doing better in the middle. They were very good last week. I really like the quality of that win, and it was certainly far higher than I expected that they could get back to. And Bellamy is right, defensively very, very strong, and that's going to be a real test for the Broncos here. I just thought the Broncos were really ugly last week. Won 18-10, thank God they did, bless their little cotton socks with the 18.5 on the lunch bet. But to be fair, they should have won that game by 30 points. They had so much ball yet made so much error. They made 16 errors, and the Knights had just as equal amount of ball and have absolutely no idea what to do with it. I thought the Broncos scrappy. Their record against the Storm is just horrendous. They've lost their last 11 in total straight, yet against the Storm at Suncorp, it's also 11 losses. And of the last 32 times they've played, the Broncos have only won 4. I just think they're running out of petrol at the end of the season, the Broncos. It would be a massive lift off what they've done in recent weeks. They leaked 32 to the Tigers. They leaked 34 to the Roosters. I thought they were very sloppy last week. I have to be with the Storm. And as Tristan suggests, they've been probably the best back team at the line this week.
What about Adam Reynolds from the sideline? And Warren Smith's the commentator at Fox Sports. They're just talking about how good he is from the sideline. He's going to kick it, and we needed it to get the Broncos at the minus 18.5 to make you pay for lunch, Jared. And do you think he'd kick it? No, he didn't. And as you say, so many opportunities. I thought they were ordinary, the Broncos. Like, every time they did something good, they'd do 3 things bad. And I just thought, oh, come on, put them away, put them out of their misery, the Newcastle Knights, and they couldn't do it. So that was a little bit devastating for me. On the other hand, they've named Brandon Smith on the bench, Tui Kamikamica on the bench. So remember last time he started Kamikamica, and so did Smith, King, and Eisenhuth back onto the bench. That meant Nelson went to an edge, and when Nelson went to an edge, he was chasing kicks. I was like, what's going on here? He's 125 kilos chasing kicks. He was quite incredible. And then the icing on the cake is Munster, who hasn't had a drink for nearly 12 months and has prepared himself physically better than at any stage of his career, and is hungry at these big games at this time of the season. And his performance last week, I mean, if you could give the Dally M points, you'd give him 3, 2, and 1. He was head and shoulders above every other player on the field. He's at Suncorp. He'd be loving to play there, just as Cameron Smith used to, and he's had so much great success there. I'm with the market, and it keeps drifting. So Storm minus 6.5 for me, and to do it in a ruthless fashion that's so very Craig Bellamy. So I'm very strong on that one. Traditional rivalry on the Saturday, the first game, the 3:00 game. It's the Eels up against the Doggies, the great powerhouses from the 1980s. Mitch Moses named. Jake Arthur back to the reserves list. Bailey Simonson listed amongst the reserves. He's nearing a return from that hamstring injury. So let's have a look at the Bulldogs. Luke Thompson, Tavita Pangai Jr. named amongst the reserves. We'll have to wait and see how that one is. So he hasn't played since round 12, Thompson, with concussion protocols. Pangai Jr. Away last week for personal reasons. And Matt Burton, he is free to play after accepting that fine for the shoulder charge. So this seems like a comfortable one for the Eels, but that wasn't the case the last time these sides met, Tristan.
No, it wasn't. And as you say, they're traditional rivals. The Bulldogs have been very good up until that performance they threw in over the border, over the ditch, should I say, there. Last weekend. It was a quick backup, 5-day turnaround, Bundaberg to New Zealand, and a lot of teams aren't used to travelling. So whether that's an excuse, can they get back up for the Eels? The Eels, as we know, they haven't been as ruthless as what they need to be against these weakened side, but they are no certainty to make the 8 here. They need to make sure they win this game, and they need to win well because they've got the biggest amount of variance. They could easily get on a run and finish close to that top 4. Or if they keep losing, then they could slippery slope out of the 8. So there's a lot of pressure on them considering where they were at the start of the year. It's $1.33 the Eels, $3.35 the Bulldogs, and 9.5. This game's moved from 8.5 out to 9.5, 180 the over, $2 the plus. Obviously, all eyes on Mitch Moses, whether he lines up or not.
Now, Jimmy, don't even get excited or think that there might be a lunch bet here. But if I had to play, there's only one way you look at this game, and that's with the plus at the Bulldogs. And off that really poor game last week, back at home, they have responded well and generally have been very positive with their football. And that's what they did to the Eels when last time they played them and absolutely whacked them 34-4 back in round 14. And this is just the sort of game that the Eels can drop. They came off those 3 good wins to then not even be in the same postcode last week against the Rabbits. And I thought the Rabbitohs probably left 5 tries out there. It could have been 50-something, and the Eels got to 0. They should win on paper, but they are so hard to catch with the inconsistency. And as I said, there would only be one way I'd be here. I think you'd probably wait late because it probably might get to 10.5. I'd just be with the Bulldogs and the fact that it's a right game against their neighbour who they love to play. There's that traditional matchup, and Eels to win, but I just absolutely do not trust the game.
Yeah, isn't it, mate? Because 3 of those 5 tries that they nearly scored were all to Latrell Mitchell at $2.13. But anyway, we can move past that. Is it? Well, I wrote down Bulldogs plus 9.5. Can you get plus 9.5 to a side that was beaten by 30 points? They beat them by 30 points last game, and that's what I find hard to consider. I also find it hard to consider this, that a team that looks so good against Manly, and maybe the Titans form line, without being disrespectful to your top sport Titans, how do you line that performance from the Eels up that looks so strong and full of power and composed and everything you want in your footy team at this time of the year, come up with that performance last week? It looked like it was boys against men in that game against South Sydney, and not just Latrell. You know, you were trying to work out who's the best forward on the field. There was Tavita Totola, Jai Arrow, Keen Kalamatangi, and Cam Murray, and they all dominated this much vaunted Parramatta Eels pack. They got it all to play for. I know the Bulldogs were really poor last week, but I'm with you, Jared. I'm all over the plus 9.5 there.
The other big question too, Jimmy, is as Tristan touched on, I mean, the Eels are now in 7th on 28 points, behind them in 26. The Raiders have got this soft run home. Should they keep winning and climb into contention in the 8, and the Eels drop a couple of these games and they don't have a straightforward draw to finish the season, gee, that puts some pressure and focus around the coaching position where there's always been a lot of discussion over the last 12 months. They miss the 8. I am absolutely dead certain that Brad Arthur sees the exit door.
Yeah, I think you'd be absolutely right. Then you got to find someone better, right? So that'll be the challenge for Eels management. Let's get to the game. 5:30. It's the Manly Seagulls up against the Cronulla Sharks, the Battle of the Beaches on this one. We talked about how disappointing Manly were against the Titans. Kohler shifts to the wing. Jason Saab out for the year. Morgan Harper back into the centres. Jake T, he's out for the year. Dylan Walker into the lock position. Ethan Bullimore added to the bench. Now, the Sharks have got some issues. Toby Rudolph, month on the sideline with a torn medial. Braden Hamlin-Uele, who is impressive, comes into the starting side. Andrew Fafita with Andrew Fafita. CSC for Talakai still out with a shoulder injury. Connor Tracy and Matt Moylan are back on deck for them. Braden Trindle, Matt Ikavalu and Jesse Colhoun are the 3 men to drop out of last week's 17. This looks very straightforward, Tristan.
Yeah, it's. I don't think you'd be saying, or you would have thought you'd be saying at the start of the season, the Seagulls would be 11.5-point underdogs when they've got, a good chunk of their players in a game at home. But that's where we find themselves at against the Sharks, and the lines move very heavily. It's gone 8.5 out to 11.5, 185 the minus, 195 the plus. Manly $3.80. Sharkies $1.27. The totals are creeping up here. They've moved up 4 points, 46.5 out to 50.5. So, I don't know. Like when we had the controversy there a few weeks ago with Manly and they played the Roosters, they played such an aggressive passionate style of football. And if I was a Manly fan, I would have been immensely proud of that effort. I couldn't be proud of their efforts the last couple of weeks against the Eels, and then in particular against the Titans. The Titans just ran them ragged, and if the Titans could do that, if the Sharks get up ahead of steam, if Manly put in a similar sort of effort and attitude to what they put in last Sunday, it could be a very, very long night. You'd hope that fire up a little bit for their home crowd and give them something to cheer about, but I think we're going to have a pretty good idea of the picture after about 10 or 15 minutes.
The only question mark about this game is the Sharks' record at Brookvale is just over the last 20 years has been atrocious. But surely they win here and win comfortably enough. The Eagles, that I would have to say is one of the lowest offerings they've made as a club in the last 10 years last week. And I'm sure it looks like there's a rift, that everybody's not on the same page. There's clearly drama in the place. Some of the offerings or lack of offerings in defence, there were guys who just did not want to be there last week, and we saw patches of that against the Eels, and thought maybe they might just get better going back against a weaker opponent down the table. Well, they got absolutely their backside handed to them. Sharks, they're playing for second spot. There's a lot to play for here. All they need to do is win. I expect that they probably could win and cover the line at 12. I just don't want to touch the game because I don't trust the fact that it's at Brookvale. If anything, I actually don't know that it does get to over 50 or 52 because I'm just not sure what the Eagles bring to the game.
Yeah, that AJ Brimson try where he beat about 4 players is that one in the video session when you're just sinking lower and lower in your chair saying, oh, please don't play that again, coach, because that's embarrassing for me. Embarrassing for 4 forwards and the defensive line there for the Manly Seagulls. As good a player as AJ Brimson is, and he is a fabulous player and a great athlete, but that sort of summed up where they were. For the day. It's like they packed the tent up and ready to go home. As you say, divided. I read a quote from Kieran Foran saying we're going to play like professionals, and I thought, ooh, when you're playing like professionals without a bond, that can lead to some really ordinary end-of-season performances. On the other hand, the Sharks are just so professional. Multiple points of attack that they have now. I know, the headline act is Nico Hines, but with Moylan back into the side now, even with Connor Tracy back into the side, they have these multiple points of attack. I think Blake Brayley is so creative out of dummy half for them as well. A representative player of the future and playing some really good footy. And young Cade Dykes, his second game was better than his first game. And, as the great Jack Gibson used to say, when it comes to selection, nothing is temporary and nothing is permanent. And he keeps improving like that. Well, you never know where the ceiling is. So too many points of attack. I take on board the record there at Four Pines Park, but I'm with the Sharks at the -11. All right, let's get into the Saturday night game, 7:35 out there at the SCG. The Roosters taking on the West Tigers. Lindsay Collins, Siasiwa Torquiaho still on the sideline. So they've got the 17 that were there against the Cowboys. Oliver Gildart, he's been named in that extended bench. He got 5 tries for the North Sydney side, but he was playing against Newcastle, so temper your enthusiasm on that one. Ken Marmelaw is back with from that knee injury stuff. Atoa moves into the centres. James Roberts drops out. Alex Seafarth added to the bench, and Tyrone Peachy goes to the reserves. Stefano Utoi Kamanu and Luke Brooks still not back into the side. Appropriately, Tristan, at the cricket ground for a cricket score.
I think you could be right. The Roosters smelt blood against the Cowboys, and they put some really strong performances up. I don't think the Tigers are anywhere near the defensive capability of the Cowboys. The Roosters need to keep winning. They're as good as they've been in recent times. They're still sitting there in 8th spot on the ladder, which is amazing because they've won their last 5. And I just feel they're going to come out to this game and put up a big number. It's 105 the Roosters, $10 the Tigers, 22.5, 49.5 the total points. The poor old Tigers had the Sharks last week and they ran up a score against them. And I feel it might be something similar coming on the cards here on Saturday evening.
Jimmy, I said to a couple of people over the weekend, since Jesus played number 7 for Nazareth, the basics of the game and what you do and do right which sets you up for a win, hasn't changed. If you've got big boys through the middle that just keep bending the line and create room for you, a pair of good halves who know what they're doing, and then a back three like the Roosters have, you just fill in the other spots with the right people and the rest unfolds. And right at the moment, they have momentum, and it's powerful momentum, and it's being driven in the middle. Those two big fellas in Hargraves and Lodge have been all but their best in the last couple of weeks. Absolutely trampled the Broncos. Almost did something similar to the Cowboys. They just could not hold them there. And if they get Collins and Takiako back in the coming weeks, they're certainly on a roll. And that top of the table, as it unfolds in the semi-finals and the draw, could open right up for them. I think, as Tristan suggests, I think they do a number here. I mean, I think the Tigers are in a lot of trouble. They're really missing all of those key outs that they have, and it's just a long list now, especially at 7 at the base of their scrum. Their edges defensively, I think they've got major problems. I certainly think the Roosters are winning. I think the market opened 18.5, quickly went to 19.5. All of a sudden, 21.5, now 22. Probably starts at 23, and I think the Roosters win by as much as they wish.
Concur wholeheartedly. Cut paste on that one. You mentioned the power game that the Roosters are employing through Lodge and Big Jared, who've been excellent the last couple of weeks for them, and that does continue. Don't underestimate what Victor Radley does through the middle of the field. Interesting when he goes off the field, and that was in the Broncos game, allowed the Broncos to come back into the game. They've just been superb. And the power game that they show at times, not for extended times, but at times, and probably pushed out to 60 minutes against the Cowboys. No sides in the comp can handle them. And I'm throwing in the Melbourne Storm and the Penrith Panthers at that point. Their challenge for the Roosters is to be an 80-minute performance, and that's going to be a really big challenge against the Tigers side that may offer little resistance. Talk about Jackson Hastings and his impact on this side. Sometimes it's best to understand it when he's not there, and you've seen their two performances. They were poor against the Knights in a really good contest, but a low-quality game, and then they were nowhere against the Cronulla Sharks. Dewey and Jock Madden, they're just not organised. That's not what they do. And so as a result of that, they're a little bit rudderless. And then you start thinking about, well, where's the motivation for the West Tigers at this point? I'm with everyone on this one. The minus 22.5 as it stands now, just not enough. First game Sunday. The Dragons taking on the Top Sport Titans. So Anthony Griffin's got the same 17 that went so close against the Canberra Raiders. Jaden Sullivan listed amongst the reserves. He's returning from that shoulder injury. As mentioned earlier, this might be a bit of a selection shock from Justin Holbrook. Tino Fa'asuamaleaui, he is back after his partner gave birth last week. So Jared Wallace back to the reserves list. I'm not sure whether Tristan will agree with this. Aaron Clark remains at hooker after Aaron Booth was out for the year, and Tanner Boyd and AJ Brimson continue to be in that position in the halves. You'll be all over this one, Tristan, surely.
Yeah, well, I'll be very happy to take any lunch bets if there's any available. But I think it's just great to be able to give a rundown of this week's prices and not be adding up how many losses in a row it's been on the way through. So the Titans go into this game as underdogs. They're $2.45. The Dragons $1.55, and the line is 4.5. 185 the plus, 195 the minus. Obviously, Dragons at home probably warrant that favouritism, and we have got another significant upward spike in the total points here. It's gone from 46.5 to 49.5. I suspect with both of these sides out of finals contention, they'll be throwing the ball around, trying to put some points up, and a few of those young kids, particularly for the Dragons, will certainly want to be putting their foot forward to try to earn a starting spot for next season. But Titans, they'll be looking for another upset if they can put up a similar performance there to last Sunday.
Have the swab results come back from last Sunday yet? I mean,
the Knights game's the next one.
That's probably the other one. But I mean, I just don't know what to do with the Titans here. Am I believing that form line? But then it just looks so soft against how poor the Eagles were. I mean, if they can play with some of that confidence and ball movement, even on the road down to Wollongong, well then, they're an enormous show here, and I'd suggest that they can probably go close to winning. I'm just not sure if that was just a sparkle because of how poor the Eagles were, and so I'm a little bit hesitant around that. Let's hope that gives them some confidence, a little bit of belief, and that they want to play a little bit brighter football as they did. The Dragons, they were down by 12 last week by the Raiders. I thought the Raiders just should have put that game absolutely to bed, should not have been close late. And so I just don't trust the form line again. I mean, I don't know. Has Griffin actually made a change to his team this year? I mean, he just ends up going with pretty much the same 17 or 18, and every now and again he rotates a bloke on the bench, yet they just keep coming up with 0. The problem here is if we're talking about a game that the market suggests there may be a lot of points in it, where did the Dragons' points come from? I mean, they scored 18. They've been scoring 18 as an average this year. It's a miracle some weeks if they actually get to 20. And if Ben Hunt is not just completely carrying them and on the back of some assistance from Cody Ramsey, they have no other strike around what they're doing, but incredibly disappointing. And Jimmy, let me pose this question just for discussion on the coach. Well, let's go back to early in the season before a ball was kicked. Some bright sparks at the Dragons decided to extend Griffin into next year. Now, had they sat on their hands and said, let's just see what unfolds now, what do you think they'd be doing now? Do you think they'd be reviewing the season going, no, I think we might be time for a bit of a change here?
Oh, well, Dean Young asked the same question too, Gerard, and what he's done defensively up there for the North Queensland Cowboys. My point about that management is this. Who was chasing Anthony Griffin?
No one.
They talked about, well, let's take away the speculation. Well, now we're just speculating about the following year. So, and so it's all about team performance. The team performance will quell speculation, and we just haven't had it. I said it on air today. I talk about, play the young guys, and look, I'm all for it, but I'm not there working with them day by day. And I know Cody Ramsey's a young guy as well, but Tyrell Sloan looks to have so much upside. But from what I understand, he doesn't know what it takes to be an NRL first grader just yet, but Cody Ramsey does. So Jaden Sullivan's got an injury and all that sort of thing. But it's just so very Anthony Griffin not to make that change, isn't it? So, that's the concern I have with that. And I wrote down Titans plus 4.5, and then on the back of you saying, Manly were awful. And then you think, well, hang on, the Dragons went down there and Talatau Amoni's played well, and Ben Hunt, he can do anything. And then they got to get on a plane and then get on a bus, and then they've got to get down to Wollongong, and I've scratched that out and I've gone Dragons minus 4.5, which might tell you a lot about the game, and say, all right, stay away from it, treat them as the Warriors, either or, and just not use it as a betting medium. But if I have to, I'll go Dragons minus 4.5 with very little confidence.
Jimmy, you've had the most success out of any team all year opposing the Titans in your lunch bet. Surely you're not going to go weak at the knees now, are you?
Righto, let's go. Righto, you and me, Dragons, there I am. It was a toss of the coin for me, and now I've put a lunch bet on it. That's just ridiculous. But anyway, thought Anthony Griffin's game plan last week was excellent. Just players didn't carry it out. So there we go. That's where I'm going. So we're on for the lunch bet.
Definitely on. Jerry, can we interest you at either side?
I am staying right out. You two conned me last week. I'm just sitting here on my hands.
Well, we've still got another 10, 15 minutes left of the show, so I'll see if I can come in over the top like I did last week.
Just to let you know, Jared, you haven't had a lunch bet yet this week. You understand that?
I can't tell you how many messages I got on Friday last week after people listening to the podcast and then giggling at the end how I went from nothing to falling into 3 lunch bets in one foul swoop.
Yeah, all right. We're not done yet.
Absolutely conned.
Now, this is an interesting game for so many reasons. The Newcastle Knights are taking on the Canberra Raiders at McDonald Jones Stadium. This is the Sunday 4:00 game. So, Newcastle, wow, I said it earlier. No one other than Danny Badiris and Phil Gardner are more happy that Peter Parr arrived into the Hunter at the time that he did, given what's transpired there over the last couple of days. So we know no Bradman Best. We know no Anari Tuwala. They're down for disciplinary reasons. Edric Lee is back. Christian Mapa Palangi is going to make his NRL debut at centre, so we wish him all the best with that. Dave Clemmer, we think, is back. Jacob Saifidi to lock. Matt Croker to the bench. Suaso Su is the 18th man. So we've got Joe Tarpany back in the front row after that ribs injury. Umre Gula to the bench. Ryan Sutton to the reserves list. So he's going to the Bulldogs next year. Keep that in mind. Nick Kotrich has pushed his way back into the side after being out with suspension. So Albert Hopewate drops to 18th man. And Ricky Stewart is back working with the Raiders this week after serving his one game suspension. Now, this is a difficult one to price up.
So Jimmy, tell me, in your heyday being around a few football clubs, especially the first grade ones, did you go to the bathroom on your own, or did you normally take somebody with you?
Depends what mood I was in, Jared. It's, no, look.
It depends if you just bought a house.
Yeah, exactly. I think Kurt Mann was holding his hair back. It's just an unfortunate one. I'm not sure that anyone on this podcast is stupid, and I'm convinced that anyone who looks at the video has a great understanding of what's going on. They've been drug tested. I'm presuming it was a urine sample, and it was about not quite 72 hours after the Saturday night. So all of these things are very important when it comes to positives or negative drug tests. And the other thing about it is, if it is their first offence, we won't know about it. Whether they've been target tested by the NRL or not, that's the drug policy that's in place. So extraordinary and just a shocking look for the club. Sorry, Tristan.
It's a shocking look for the club. And I think when you compound this, if there isn't anything, and obviously there's legalities and everything surrounding it, but when you've dropped David Clemmer for spraying the trainer, and maybe there's more to it, when you drop another player for turning up 6 minutes late to the bus or missing or the video session, these sort of things, and then it would appear as though the star player is going to get off without any reprimand for what would appear to be a bigger issue. That's the thing that I think as a fan is where the smell lies. And I think, who knows what like as you said, none of us are stupid here, and it just doesn't look good. And it'll be interesting how this other group of players come out now and perform on Sunday against a Canberra side that should be winning this game and should be winning it comfortably. They're back playing in front of their home crowd. And not only that, it'll be interesting what the crowd does to this night side pending their performance as well. I think there's going to be a lot of storylines towards this game, and it's $3.40 Newcastle, $1.32 Canberra, and a flat 10 is the line. Don't forget that Canberra is sitting on that verge of the 8, like we said, and they need to rack up scores to get their for and against up to compete with the likes of Parramatta. So they're going to be in a mood if they can jump out to elite. So 10 flat is the line. It's moved from 6.5. I'll be fascinated to see how the Knights go if they drop behind a score or two, if their heads drop, or they fight back a little bit like they did against the Broncos, to their credit there last weekend.
If the Knights at home were paying anybody else in the top 8 other than the Raiders this week, I would have been ringing my bank manager, and whatever the line was, just going whack, because I think they lay down. The club is just an absolute mess from the top down of the coach. And you're right. I mean, Clemmer gets stood down and there's all this internal drama. And I can tell you, Clemmer got notice that he was being called to a meeting on the morning that the media got hold of it to be sacked. His papers have been marked the night before, and that was for giving a trainer a spray, yet all this other rubbish is now going on. And it's just reflective of a whole heap of other stuff that's been going on behind the scenes. The end of season in the next couple of weeks just cannot come quick enough. They're going to finish somewhere in the bottom 4. It may well be bottom 2. I think they're absolutely no chance this week. The problem is I have absolutely zero trust about the Raiders wanting to put their foot down. They will win. And we saw it last week. I had a decent bet on the Raiders to cover the line at 5.5 and led by 12, and yet they just don't have this hunger to really want to put teams away. They're just worried about winning, about picking up the 2 points and just moving on to the next week and not finishing teams off. The Raiders win. I couldn't touch the game with a barge pole, and I'm sure that the Knights offer very little.
For all those reasons, I'm with you. The +10, I looked at the +10 and went, oh, well, they're awful. They're a rabble. It's been a horrible week for them, but it's Canberra. And as you say, they don't have the disciplines associated with putting teams away, and we've seen that throughout the course of this year. Hence their poor for and against, and hence their opportunity last week to improve that, and they missed it with the way that you've explained that. Here's one for you, and no pun intended too, when you thought that the Raiders could be racking up a big score, Tristan. So thank you very much on behalf of all Knights supporters for that one. But does Kalyn Ponga go out for the warm-up this week? Like he wasn't there at the ground. He wasn't in the city. He was at home drinking, celebrating his house purchase. And yet we all remember when earlier this year, Jackson Hastings paid his own way to go to Queensland to be in the coach's box with the West Tigers. So you tell me who's the leader and who's not. And you tell me what the reception's going to be from these Newcastle Knights crowd. You talked about going back home. Being back home hasn't helped the Newcastle Knights this year. You know, and it goes back to that meeting that and the word that came out when Wayne Bennett challenged Kalyn Ponga and said, you're not stretching yourself, you're not pushing yourself, but I'll turn you into the player that you could be. And on the back of that, the Dolphins missed their man. And they might be thinking right now, thank heavens we did. And the fact that he wanted to take the option of it was far more comfortable to stay in Newcastle and get you 1.1. I hope in 4 years' time, because we've seen what he did in State of Origin. We're talking about the fact that Kalyn Ponga found this moment as the reason that he changed his career. And that it happens with so many players. So, you know, he's still young. He's an adult, but he's still young, and he might find this maturity. But right now, he is not the right person to be leading that club. And I think the club would be looking at their decisions and thinking, holy hell, what have we got ourselves in for now? Guess what? On the back of that, Knights +10 for me.
Well, and Jimmy, you're 100% right. I mean, how the management thought that he was the right guy to be named as captain this year, he's at least 3 years way too early before that role, because he's just lack of leadership and maturity, and we've just seen so many examples of that. Now, all the mail coming out of the Knights is that they are going to play him at number 6 next year. They've already made that decision, and so the other mail is that Brooks will be there, so they'll have Brooks at 7 and Ponga at 6. They need that leadership. He's not the right guy, and he's not in the right place to be doing that right now. And you summed it up perfectly, Jimmy. Last weekend, where was he? Absolutely not there leading the club.
You better give us our game tips and your best bet of the weekend, Jared.
Jimmy, some tricky games, but I'm with the Rabbits, the Cowboys, the Storm, with the Eels, but that's not straightforward. The Sharks, the Roosters, who knows in the last two. I went with the Dragons and the Raiders. Listen, I thought the best two have been very well found in the marketplace are the Cowboys and the Roosters. Let's go to 13 plus for each. The Cowboys 13 plus into the Roosters 13 plus. $1.92. I think that's a great price for two teams that I expect to be winning by far more than 14 in each of their contests.
Tristan, you got something for us beyond your love of the Titans and the +4.5?
I'm going to talk to management here and see if I can get an asterisk on my bet with the Bunnies and see if we can do anything if Latrell pulls out of the game, because I know Jimmy's got some contacts here at Top Sport HQ to be able to get that formula. But no, on a serious note, I very much agree with Jared. I really like that bet. I'm not going to double up, but I'm actually going to take the Roosters 30 plus at their line. I think they're going to have a very, very big win here, which the Roosters 31 plus, I'm just trying to get that market up now, is sitting there at, sorry, I should have had that up already. Here we go. It's at $2.60. So it's a no luxurious price, but I just think they're going to put a big number on the Tigers, unfortunately, for all Tigers fans.
I do like that one.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that as well. All right, I'm going to go the Storm at the -6. I'll take the $1.90. But my staking plan, Tristan, is going to go something like this: half my stake on that, and the other half on the Storm 13 plus at $2.67. So I'm very bullish about the Melbourne Storm, and I was less than impressed by what the Brisbane Broncos did last week, despite the fact that they had their win.
Well, the really good news, Jimmy, for listeners is Tristan will probably have the podcast bets up this week, and if we're all a little bit keen on around those few bets, there might be a couple of nice playable options.
Yeah, we'll certainly have it up this weekend. Obviously, last weekend with the timing of it, we didn't have any racing bets, but certainly I'll have that full suite of options up this evening when this pod goes live. So yeah, it could be a few little options, and it seems like we're all on a similar page, which I'm not sure how happy or sad the other listeners will be about that.
What about the pros and the Joes, Tristan? What are the Sharps doing with this round of the National Rugby League, mate?
Yeah, well, as we alluded to, there's been a lot of focus on the overs, and punters have been looking for any option that they can to look at these big lopsided lines where teams might get on a run and just completely blow the other sides away. So the ones that they've been looking at are games that Jared's already touched on, the Cowboys game and the Roosters game, and backing the first team to 40. So Cowboys have firmed up from $2.60 into $2.40 to be the first side to 40 points. And then also in the other game, the Roosters game, that's seen another big go where they've been coming for both of those options. We actually take some sizable bets on the Roosters first team to 50, where they've been $7 into $5.50 to get to 50 first. So obviously the no or neither side getting there is very short, $1.15. But I think the mentality of punters here that if they're going to get on a march, they're going to put up any number.
My conversations Monday, Tuesday are certainly about the Cowboys covering the line, certainly about the Roosters covering the line. Both of those have been very well found. Also, the Storm doing something similar. Now, the other interesting thing in that Broncos-Storm game, has there been a little push for the over here at all, Tristan, at the 44.5 at Suncorp?
Yeah, it's gone from 43.5 out to 44.5, so certainly moved up.
Well, certainly a couple of things come into play here. One is that the Broncos at home at Suncorp have a very high strike rate of their games going over the total points. The other big factor here is that Todd Smith, who we mentioned last week, who had a week off, comes back this week and refereeing this game. And his games have a very strong strike rate of heading over. So the other play to keep in mind this week might be the Broncos Storm over 44.5.
Okay, good intel. Good intel. He's been impressive, Todd Smith, hasn't he?
Yeah, I like him. Yeah. I think he's very much on the up.
Yeah, done a good job. All right, let's have a look at some racing for the weekend. Jared, you got something for us?
I have, Jimmy. Let's go down to the Valley. Race 3, number 3, Larkeen. Got back on a dry track last start, and we saw the quality that it has. I think it'll get a similar track, and it was at the Valley that it won. Craig Williams is absolutely riding in just outstanding form at the moment, and his ride on Larkeen last start to get it home to win was super. He's on again. I think we'll get somewhere about the $3. Maybe we might get a touch higher come race time. Best of the bet. So the Valley Race 3, number 3, Larkeen for me.
Staking plan there, Jared, or?
Mine's always pretty simple, Jimmy. Just 100 on the nose, thank you.
Okay. All right. Tristan, you got a runner for us?
I'm going to take us to the Richmond Dogs on Saturday morning, where we had in the Top Sport Lounge, we had your good friend Joe Lanuti there, Jimmy, and he was I got randomly, it was very surprising. I had 3 or 4 people come up to me and ask me if I was a shareholder in She's a Pearl. So I'm not sure what why he thought he'd take it upon himself, but he has tipped us into another dog, Sacred Stance, and it's running in the straight track final on Saturday night there at Richmond, and it almost broke the track record in the heat. And there's a couple of very, very smart dogs in there, so I'm tipping it might be a little bit bigger price than what it might need to be. So the race numbers aren't up yet. We'll check all of that, but it's on Saturday night at Richmond in the straight finals race, and it's a dog called Sacred Stance. So have a look at that, and we'll see what price it opens up.
All right. There we go. That's almost a guarantee that it'll be a good price, courtesy of topsport.com.au.
Jimmy, the really good news for everybody out there this week is that I see King's Trust is not accepted for anything. So is there anything else you did find?
As a matter of fact, I did. Randwick Race 4, number 13, One Eye. Bit of odds here. Opened at 13. It might be at 13 at topsport.com.au. Has come back in super form. Jared, fit flying, right down in the weights, gets the weight advantage. And the track should suit. Lots of positives for a horse. And, of course, it comes from that esteemed stable of Barbara Joseph and Paul Jones. So there you go, $13 and $3.80. As far as the staking plan, the all-important staking plan here, Tristan, I'll go 30-70. Thank you, with my staking plan.
You wouldn't believe, Jimmy.
That's a new one, so we'll pop that on there. It's an interesting one because you've had a very good record with the 20-80s. So it'll be interesting. Yeah, 40-60. So we're going in the middle.
30-70s, yeah. Contemplated the 25-75, but I've just done some more analytics on that. The 30 and the 70 might do me.
Jimmy, you wouldn't believe, about an hour and a half ago, I got a text message from a good friend who said, Gerard, race 4 Saturday round week, number 13. Think it's double its price.
Yeah. Oh, the sharps are all over it, Gerard. Yeah.
It must be, Jimmy. It's 12s out to 13s.
Oh, it can happen in this funny game. Gentlemen, that's it. That's it. We're all done for another week. Very good fun. So what do we got? Just the one lunch bet, you and I, Tristan?
Yeah. Can we twist your arm for anything, Gerard? Can we do a bit of negotiating, or you're locked into to nothing this week?
No, listen, there's ones that I like, but I think we're all on the same page, unless you guys want to take me on the total points at Suncorp.
What about the Penrith plus 3.5?
Penrith plus 3.5. Yeah, I'll take you on that one.
Done. Obviously, it's on the proviso that Latrell.
No, there's no proviso there.
Oh,
mate.
what happened to the proviso? Okay, let's tell you what.
Well, mate, if Latrell doesn't play, you're in front. Because if Latrell doesn't play and it's closer to pick him, you're 3.5 in front. Yeah.
No, my worry is Latrell trots out there. I'm like, oh, why bother?
I think you spent 15 minutes singing his praises. Hey, Jimmy, just lastly, the other really good thing for our podcast listeners is coming up in the next few weeks, the NFL is back.
Whoa.
And we did cover that each week through the off-season last year, as well as all that spring racing. So we've got all of that to look forward to. And my goodness, watching social media and some of the media coverage coming out of the US, everybody's absolutely pumped about this new season, and it looks incredibly open.
Detroit's going to have a big one as well, I feel.
I was about to say, even Detroit might be a chance.
Funny you mentioned that. There we are walking out of Coles at Camden the other day, and I said to the eldest son, Austin, look at that, look at that. There's a bloke walking up the other escalator, and he's got the Detroit Lions shirt on. And Austin went, oh. As if to say, why on earth would you wear that? And I thought, all right, we'll keep him away from Tristan.
That makes two of us in the country.
Yeah, that's right. I found the Detroit Lions other Australian fan.
Everyone's all over the Buffalo Bills at the moment. They're very well found in the long-term markets, and just keep a little eye on those San Francisco 49ers.
Ooh. All right. Kyle Shanahan, and John Lynch getting it done, the coach and general manager. All right, lads, that's it. We have thoroughly enjoyed it this week. I know we're going to enjoy the weekend of footy and the racing, and I hope you do the same.
Take care, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys.